Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here's a look at some of the stories we have lined up for you tonight. Close to 750 wildfires are burning across Canada, and roughly 4,000 evacuees are forced out over the long weekend near Nelson House, Manitoba. Plus, a new report says the deadly Titan submersible disaster off the coast of Newfoundland happened because of preventable safety failures and deliberate oversight. And it's been quite a year for Jerome Blake. We meet Canada's new fastest man.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced a major funding for Canada's forestry sector, speaking at a lumber facility in Kelowna, BC today amid renewed tensions in the softwood lumber dispute with the U.S. Carney announced Ottawa will back the industry with loan guarantees.
We'll provide up to $700 million in loan guarantees. This will ensure that forestry companies of all sizes have the competitive financing they need to maintain and restructure, if necessary, their operations during a period of profound transformation. Second, to make the softwood lumber industry more competitive for the long term, we will provide an additional $500 million, largely in grants and contributions to supercharge new product development and new market diversification. Products such as reinforced timber and low-carbon wood fiber-based insulation materials that are used in prefabricated and modular housing. These investments will increase domestic processing and value added, particularly as technology changes the way we build.
The move comes as the U.S. racks up tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber as bilateral trade tensions rise. It also comes as Canada's Ministers of Finance and Foreign Affairs are in Mexico to talk economic growth, trade and security with President Claudia Sheinbaum. Their trip is happening ahead of Carney's planned visit to the Latin American country to meet with Sheinbaum. Mexico is one of Canada's biggest trading partners for oil and gas, steel and aluminum. However, according to Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, this strategy of making trade deals with Mexico may not necessarily work in our favor.
We're not huge trading partners with Mexico. It's not small. I'm not going to say that we don't do trade with Mexico, but they're not one of our, the U.S., China, those are our two big trading partners. Mexico falls in line after them. The idea that we can pivot away from the U.S. is lovely. I'd love for us to do it. Stephen Harper tried for 10 years. He signed more trade deals than any prime minister in Canadian history, trying to get us to pivot away from the United States. And what happened? Exports to the U.S. went up, as a percentage of GDP, as a percentage of our exports. We haven't been able to do this. And also, we continue to try and expand our exports, and yet we get in our own way.
In that full interview with Brian Lilley, he also discusses how Trump is now threatening a tariff as high as 250% on pharmaceuticals, which is a major export product for Canada. That interview coming up right after business news. An advocacy group, representing some northern First Nations in Manitoba say hearts are with the roughly 4,000 evacuees who were forced out by wildfires over the long weekend. The group says many of the residents from a Cree Nation near Nelson House had to fly out to Winnipeg. The evacuation comes as the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre reported almost 750 wildfires across Canada. Now here's a look at the Canadian wildfire smoke map for August 5th to 7th. On the East Coast, the Newfoundland and Labrador government has issued evacuation orders for 2 towns because of a 150-hectare wildfire. In British Columbia, the Wildfire Service says there are 130 active fires. That's more than double from a week ago when they had 60 following a stretch of hot, dry weather and thunderstorms that produced thousands of lightning strikes. One of the fires is 14 square kilometers in size and has prompted evacuation orders and alerts by the Thompson-Nicola Regional District and several First Nations nearby. Remember the deadly Titan submersible disaster off the coast of Newfoundland 2 years ago? Well, a U.S. Coast Guard report says it was the result of preventable safety failures and deliberate efforts to avoid oversight. The implosion killed all 5 aboard as they descended to the Titanic wreck in 2023. The report highlights ignored safety warnings and inadequate design and maintenance. The disaster has sparked lawsuits and calls for stricter regulations in private deep-sea tourism. In Quebec, the Grand Chief of the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake says his community may impose road tolls in response to federal cuts. Cody Diabo says the tolls could help offset the impact of cuts by Indigenous Services Canada on the Mohawk community south of Montreal.
So as a proud Kanien'kehá:ka and advocate for Indigenous justice, I am deeply alarmed by the Carney's government's decision to implement 15% budget cuts across all federal departments, including Indigenous Services Canada. This action is not just a failure of public policy, it is a violation of human rights and constitutional law. While provincial transfer payments have been safeguarded to protect essential services for everyday Canadians, these same services for First Nations, funded federally through ISK, are being slashed. This disparity amounts to racialized austerity and places the burden of economic restraint squarely on Indigenous peoples who already face systemic underfunding and structural disadvantages. Let me be clear, this policy is not neutral. It flies in the face of Canada's own human rights laws. Canada cannot claim a commitment to reconciliation while cutting the very services that support our communities. In response to these unjust actions, we will now impose measures. Such measures could include, or probably will include, tolls through our territories on all major infrastructures. Let me be clear, this is not something that is against the Canadian public. This is against the Canadian government itself. All we have tried to do is live peacefully and coexist peacefully, but time and time again, the Canadian government has forced us to do different things that we have not wanted to do, and it's resulted in frictions. All we wish to do is have dialogue, but at the end of the day, we're resorting to doing different measures like this.
Diabo says they are considering tolls on major highways where he says approximately 120,000 vehicles pass per day. Every year, tourists who visit Banff, Alberta, stop and pose next to the famous Banff sign. If you've ever done it yourself, you know it can be a little unnerving with cars zipping past you. Well, the town has announced the sign is being moved.
We are so excited to be relocating the Banff sign. We know that it's caused some safety concerns along Norquay Road. Although the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour, we do have folks that are moving about on the road, and it can be a stressful situation. So we are really glad to be moving this to a more people-focused area where it's going to be safer and it's going to be so enjoyable and just a really welcomed addition to our community. We originally put the sign there in 2017 as part of our wayfinding program, and it became more popular than we ever could have imagined. Folks like climbing on the letters and taking fun photos, and so we quickly realized, oh, this is becoming an attraction unto itself. And with that came, a lot of volume and a lot of management of that site. And so over the years, we mitigated that site with crosswalk, slower speed limit, and those kinds of mediations. And eventually it just came to a point where council decided, we just need to move this to a safer place.
The Banff sign is a huge attraction, and so to have it here where people can park their cars in the free parking lot and get out, they can walk over, they can have their photo, they can have a snack, or they can look at a map, plan out their day, and then go out and explore Banff.
The plan is to move the sign to a spot outside the Banff train station in October. A family is in mourning after a toddler died in the alley behind a home in Calgary. Police say the 2-year-old girl was hit by a vehicle and was rushed to the Alberta Children's Hospital, where she unfortunately succumbed to her injuries about 90 minutes later. She had been in the alley behind her home in the 600 block of Taradale Drive shortly before 7 p.m. Monday when she was hit. Investigators say the driver of the vehicle remained at the scene and is cooperating with police. No charges have been laid. Alcohol has been ruled out as a cause of the incident, but it remains under investigation. The Alberta Serious Incident Response Team is releasing some details around an officer-involved shooting last week east of Edmonton. The shooting happened in the parking lot of the Strathcona County RCMP detachment in Sherwood Park. ACERT says on the morning of July 28th, an officer observed a man in the secure parking lot. The officer believed the man was in possession of a firearm and broadcast that information over the police radio. Several other officers entered the secure parking lot and gave the man verbal instructions. 4 officers discharged their firearms, striking the man multiple times. This BB gun right here was recovered at the scene. ACERT says after police provided first aid, the man was transported to hospital with serious injuries. The man remains in hospital and is expected to survive. No officers were injured in the incident. The investigation is ongoing. As Alberta continues to grapple with measles outbreaks in cities and towns, a team of community health representatives with Primary Care Alberta is addressing the fear of vaccines in low German-speaking Mennonite communities. More than 1,600 Albertans have been affected by the outbreak, and these health workers are fielding more and more phone calls from concerned rural communities.
What is awesome about our community health reps is they do the same thing every day, whether, but they just, during outbreaks or different emergency situations, they just do more of it more often, right? So they do education, they do capacity building, they do, connecting people to different partners, working with community groups, interpreting wayfinding. So during measles, it's the same thing, except it's more of it. So it may be translating information or putting out messaging in Low German, to a variety of different community groups, providing information about what are your options for care during measles, providing information about what measles is, about when to seek care, about how to care for people in the home, a variety of different pieces of information. And then it provides an avenue for people to come to us to seek more information, which is great because then people can get information from healthcare professionals, and then they can take that information and do with it what is best for them.
Either they need an appointment booked, they need follow-up done, which is a lot of the calls that we get is, hey, I was at a doctor's appointment. I didn't quite understand what he wanted from me. Can you follow up? And so then we try and track that, offer our services, book them the appointment, and then offer to attend if that language is a barrier.
In the clinic appointments, while we were in the waiting rooms, is where we built lots of relationship and trust with clients, and from there would discover what other needs they may have. So it's probably why we're busier today than we were when we first started. Many families might have thought it was more of an impossibility to go to a doctor's office to get the help they needed, but with our assistance and with that interpretation, they're able to do more of that, to seek more help from the medical world.
3 of Alberta's MLAs are in Boston for the National Conference of State Legislators. Glenn Van Dijken, Angela Pitt, and Chelsea Petrovic are actively promoting Alberta's role as a reliable energy and agricultural partner in the United States and advocating for a barrier-free trade relationship. The trio's trip is part of a broader effort to strengthen Alberta's economic ties with the U.S. and to make sure Alberta's voice is heard by influential American legislators. The Lethbridge Police Commission has announced the extension of Shaheen Medizade's contract as Chief of Police for the city of Lethbridge. The new extension will see Chief Medizade continue in his role until August of 2029. In a statement, the commission says the chief has provided consistent leadership through a period of transition and change, and the extension comes at a time when Lethbridge's crime severity index is showing significant improvement. Medizade says he's grateful for the opportunity to continue leading the dedicated members of the Lethbridge Police Service. He says he's proud of what they've accomplished together and remains deeply committed to serving the community alongside of them. Well, thanks to cooler temperatures and precipitation, the county of Lethbridge has lifted its fire advisory, but the county is still reminding residents to use caution with fire-related activities, regardless of weather conditions, and apply for a burn permit before conducting open burns. They are free of charge and can be applied for online or in person at the Lethbridge Administration Office. Once you have a burn permit, you're allowed to burn paper products, untreated wood, yard waste like grass and tree clippings, leaves and branches. You're also allowed to burn straw and stubble. Well, every time you donate blood, you save 3 lives, and it only takes about an hour. Donating blood is an altruistic act for millions of Canadians, but more donors are always needed. Canadian Blood Service is organizing its second O-negative type blood drive in Lethbridge next week. Seamus Neeson, Community Development Manager for the Canadian Blood Services, says 100 donors are needed.
When you look at the entire population of Canada at any given time, 50% of Canadians, 50, can't donate blood for various reasons. But when you look at the other 50%, only 1 in 76 will actually donate blood. So we're looking to get more people involved because the need is there. O-negative blood donors is the special magic blood that can go to everybody. So whenever there's an accident or an emergency of any sort, that is the blood type that will go towards patients before they're able to find out their actual blood type. Because O-negative blood is the hero blood, superheroes can only help other superheroes. So if you've got O-negative blood, you can only accept O-negative blood. Right now, we've got 54 open appointments that still need to be filled. If people are interested in booking one of those appointments, they could either make their appointment online at blood.ca. They could also download the Give Blood app onto your smartphone, or in this particular case, they could also just walk in. Your body needs to be hydrated. Make sure you have some food in your stomach. If you have any medication that you're taking, make sure you bring that list with you.
Only 7% of Canadians have O-negative blood. It's the universal donor and can be used in emergency situations where there's no time to determine the recipient's blood type. The blood drive will be held on Wednesday, August 13th from noon till 4 p.m. at the Exhibition and Trade Center. It's been 12 years since the February 2011 uprising in Yemen called the Arab Spring. What started as hope for a future free from fear has slipped into years of strife and then war, which pushed Yemen into one of the world's greatest humanitarian crises. And Christians in the country continue to face persecution. In this next story, we learn about a woman who we will call Zara, who says persecution has only made her faith stronger.
One of the only secure ways for Yemeni Christians to share their story is by meeting in a safe country outside Yemen.
نعيش بين الذئاب، نحن نعلم ذلك جيدا. في اليمن من الصعب جدا أن نشارك الإنجيل مع امرأة لأنها لا تستطيع الخروج بحرية من منزلها. لذلك هذا هو المكان الذي دعاني الله إليه. أعلم أنه أحيانا عندما أدخل إلى منزل ما قد لا أتمكن من الخروج منه.
Despite the dangers, Zara has chosen to share her account on camera. Her face and voice have been hidden to protect her identity.
لا أستطيع أن آخذ كتابي المقدس معي، فيمكنهم تفتيشي في أي نقطة تفتيش أو حاجز على الطريق. للمرأة اليمنية القدوم إلى المسيح هو فعلا معجزة. الله يعمل رغم المخاطر. فالبعض يقولون أنت كافرة وتستحقين القتل. يمكنهم أن يأخذوني إلى المتطرفين أو لمركز الشرطة، وهناك يبدأ الاستجواب. ويمكنهم حتى إصدار حكم بالإعدام ضدي. نحن تحت المراقبة الدائمة. بدأت أخدم مع أنيس وهو أخ لي في المسيح. قمنا سوية بزيارة العائلات في منازلهم لخدمتهم. وفي إحدى الزيارات تلقى أنيس رسالة هاتفية بأننا كنا تحت المراقبة وأرادوا قتلنا. بعد أسبوع تلقيت مكالمة: لقد قتل أنيس، وجدوه المتطرفين وقتلوه. أطلقوا النار عليه أمام أولاده. صدمت. لم أرد أن أخرج من المنزل لمدة شهر. ربما أنا التالية هل يمكن أن أكون التالية؟ ولكنني أنا اخترت هذا الطريق. يسوع أخذ آلامي وحمل ذنبي، والآن حان الوقت لكي أحمل صليبي. أعلم أنني أخاطر بمشاركة قصتي، وأحيانا أريد التراجع، ولكنني أشاركها معكم لأنني أتمنى أن أتمكن من مشاركة رسالة الإنجيل مع كل امرأة في اليمن. صلوا من أجلي، ساعدوني أن أصل إلى كل امرأة وفتاة حتى يخلصوا بيسوع. لا أستطيع أن أفعل هذا وحدي.
Ask Canadian runner Jerome Blake about his career, and he will define it as slow cooking. Long known for his contributions to the Canadian men's 4x100 relay team that won World Championship gold in 2022 and Olympic gold in 2024, the 29-year-old from Kelowna, BC, has enjoyed a career year in 2025. This past weekend in Ottawa, he claimed his first national title, breaking the 200-meter Canadian record in a time of 19.95 seconds.
Initially, actually going in, we were once going to run the 200 because all year I've only ran, that was my third 200 this year. So the Canadian title running 19 seconds was my third 200. And from the year started, my coach told me, just based off how training has been going and how well I was running in training, he's like, oh yeah, I think you're in 19-second shape. But somebody telling you that versus you actually doing it is a very different thing, right? I'm qualified in both events, both individual sprints, the 100 and the 200 meters. So for me, in general, I just want to go to Tokyo to represent the country at the best of my ability. Could just have some solid, good, really good races. You know, the aim's to make the finals. And once you're in the finals, then, you know, you go from there. You know, it's not to put pressure on myself to go out there and say, I have to do anything. But for me, it's just, you know, one round at a time, one race at a time, and just take it from there. You know, I'm not going to allow the fact that I've run 9 seconds and 19 seconds force me to think that I must do anything, because that's not how sports work. You know, it's one of those things where anything can happen in a day. So for me, it's just the only things I can do is just focus on being healthy and continue to work hard. And when the time comes to line up on the race and represent my country, I'm just going to do that at the best of my ability.
He's so humble. Earlier this year, Blake broke the 10-second barrier in the 100 meters for the first time and has now broken the 20-second mark in the 200 meters. Wow, isn't that something? He's certainly on a hot streak, and so is our weather, at least for the next day or so. I'll be right back with a look at the forecast right after this short break. Well, we exceeded our daytime high of 24 degrees, got up to around 26 or so. So it was a very lovely day out there, mainly sunny as well. Now, those showers and thunderstorms could actually happen this evening. As we get into Wednesday, though, look at that. Another hot day. So 27 degrees for the high, mainly sunny skies. As we get into Thursday, you could see a high of 24 with a mix of sun and cloud. Now, earlier today, Friday was supposed to look mainly sunny. All of a sudden, last I looked, we're seeing 60% chance of showers on Friday. So those could happen either Friday or Saturday. It's a little unclear at this point. 21 for the high on Friday, 24 on Saturday, back to 27 on both Sunday and Monday to round out that 7-day forecast. So the average high for this time of year is 26. So with those 27s, we'll be coming in higher than that, obviously. Average low for this time of year, 11 degrees. 36 was the record high for Lethbridge on this day back in 1961, and again in 71, and in 1924, Lethbridge saw its lowest, its coldest day on record, which was only 3 degrees. Sun rose this morning at 6:07, sunset this evening at 9:07. So look at those sevens. That means exactly 15 hours of daylight today. So we're getting shorter and shorter. As we look to here's our national forecast for tomorrow. So looking to the west coast tomorrow, we're seeing mainly showers across the west coast there. 20 for the high in Victoria, 21 in Vancouver. Edmonton could see a 60% chance of showers, and then risk of thunderstorms, high of 25. Now, both of these Alberta cities seeing sunshine in the morning and then those showers creeping in. So Calgary, high 25, and then by the afternoon, 30% chance of showers, risk of thunderstorms. As we looked at the rest of the prairies, 40% chance of showers in Saskatoon expected tomorrow, 22 for the high there, high of 25 in Regina. Regina seeing risk of thunderstorms as well, and Winnipeg seeing a 27% chance of showers. 27 degrees for the high, 60% chance of showers and a risk of thunderstorms. I'm getting my numbers all mixed up in my head here. Across the central part of the country, we're seeing local smoke in both Toronto and Ottawa, but mainly sunny skies behind that local smoke. 28 for the high in Toronto, 27 in Ottawa, and a lovely 27 degrees as well in Montreal tomorrow, with mainly sunny skies there. As we look into Atlantic Canada, we're seeing mainly sunny skies everywhere here. 25 for the high in Fredericton, same thing in Halifax, 24 in Charlottetown, and a high of 26 degrees in St. John's there. So it should be a lovely day. There you have it. That is your forecast. Canada's auto market remained resilient in July despite trade disruptions in the industry. DeRossier Automotive Consultants estimates 172,000 vehicles were sold last month, up 6.9% year over year. The auto industry is still facing uncertainty from ongoing trade negotiations between Canada and the U.S. Some automakers have raised their estimates for tariff costs. Labor experts say another postal service strike is unlikely after unionized Canada Post workers rejected their employer's latest round of offers in a forced vote, and the parties mull their next steps. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers said Friday that the roughly 55,000 members represented by the union shot down the Canada Post's latest proposal, which would have seen wage hikes of about 13% over 4 years and restructuring to add part-time workers to the deal. Some 68.5% of urban mail carriers who voted were against the deal, while their rural and suburban colleagues were 69.4% against it. Adam King, assistant professor in the labor studies program at the University of Manitoba, said the forced ratification vote ordered by the federal government and administered by the Canada Industrial Relations Board was a, quote, distraction. He adds that the Crown Corporation is going to have to put something on the table that the union actually thinks members will accept. The royal charter that formed Hudson's Bay about 355 years ago could soon be getting a new home. The Canadian Museum of History announced Wednesday that Whittington Investments Ltd., a private Canadian holding company for the Weston family, wants to buy the documents for $12.5 million and donate it to the institution, which is in Gatineau, Quebec. The charter was signed by King Charles II in 1670. It gave the Bay rights to a vast swath of land spanning most of Canada and extraordinary power over trade and Indigenous relations for decades more. The museum says the acquisition still needs court approval, but if that is obtained, the Westons will donate the document immediately and permanently. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 549 points in the day to finish at 27,570. The Dow was down 61 points to 44,111. The S&P 500 was down 30 to 6,299, and the Nasdaq was down 137 points to 20,916. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.15 to 65.13 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 8 cents to 3.01 US. Gold was up 6.01 to 33.8027 US an ounce, and silver was up 40 cents to 37.82 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.35 per bushel, barley is at $5.90, canola is at $15.40, and corn is at $7.16 per bushel. Live cattle are up $3.37 to $2.3427. Feeder cattle are up $5.65 to $3.4105, and lean hogs are up 60 cents to $108.77. All of those are August contracts. And the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 72.60 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced major funding for Canada's forestry sector. The move comes as the U.S. racks up tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber as bilateral trade tensions rise. It also comes as Canada's ministers of finance and foreign affairs are in Mexico to talk economic growth, trade and security with President Claudia Sheinbaum. Their trip is happening ahead of Carney's planned visit to Mexico to meet with Sheinbaum. Up next, U.S. President Donald Trump's 35% tariffs on Canadian goods imported into his country are now a reality. And according to political reporter Brian Lilley, Canada went from a trade deal priority to a country that can't even get its phone calls returned. How did we get here? Well, that answer is up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Well, still no trade deal between Canada and the United States by that August 1st deadline. So Trump slaps us with a 35% tariff. But many of Prime Minister Mark Carney's supporters are saying it doesn't really matter because most goods are exempt anyway. So here to discuss this and more is Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley. Brian, welcome back. Great to have you with us again.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's jump right into that, shall we? So last Friday came and went without a deal between Washington and Ottawa. And Brian, you've been writing that Canada went from a trade deal priority to a country that can't get its calls returned even. So how did we go from that to that? How did we get here?
I think we might have been 2 elbows up for what the Americans are looking for, to be quite honest. Look, they look at this as a trade negotiation. We look at it as a trade war. At least that's how the government views it. And they talk about being elbows up all the time. You've got a country that is consistently and reliably attacking and insulting the United States. You know, in March, when Ontario Premier Doug Ford went down to the White House, you remember that he was summoned by U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and he met with Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Well, in that meeting, Ford was told, look, one, you can't turn off the electricity to the United States. That will damage everything. Please don't mention that again, or the president will have to take drastic steps. So, Ford said, all right, we'll back off, but what are you going to do for me? And they said, look, these April 2nd tariffs are going to come in. And after that, Canada will be a priority. Now, he didn't just say that to Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Sitting right next to Ford was Dominic LeBlanc, Mark Carney's top guy on Canada-U.S. trade relations. Also in the room, his current finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne. They heard this. Canada is a trade priority. And yet we have done, we've made move after move to put us further down the list, so that last week, Donald Trump was saying on Thursday, the day before the tariffs are supposed to come in, yeah, Mark Carney called, but I haven't talked to him. So Carney was calling Trump and not having Trump pick up or return his call. On Sunday, LeBlanc was on CBS's Face the Nation and acknowledged that, yes, they haven't talked still. That was a live interview on Sunday morning, but he expected they would talk in the coming days. Carney's on a Carney's on a West Coast swing right now. He is not focused on this issue other than to use it for political gain. So yes, whether we're talking the move for unilaterally recognizing a Palestinian state the day before, 2 days before the trade negotiations were coming to a close, or the digital services tax and how that was handled, we have been antagonizing the United States at a time when we're trying to negotiate with them. And I know plenty of Canadians might say, yeah, antagonize them. We don't like them. But you're trying to get something from them. And if you're poking someone in the eye while asking them for a favor, guess what? It's not going to work.
Right. Would you have said that was pretty bad timing on Carney's part to recognize the Palestinian state right there? I think it was the day before or the week of.
Even if you're supportive of this, and I am not, because we can talk about this if you want. I don't think that now is the time to do this. The timing was awful. Yeah. You're going to do this just as you're trying. Donald Trump's whole thing is trying to get a trade or a ceasefire in the Middle East. And what happens immediately after Canada, France, and Britain say we're going to recognize the Palestinian state? Hamas pulls out of peace talks. Right. So you're undermining the U.S. president while asking him for a favor.
Yes.
It's just not good diplomacy.
Right. And a lot of people would say that what does foreign policy have to do with economics and trying to make a deal there? But Trump runs his country like a business. And if another business were to do something that ticks him off, he'll say, I'm not going to do business with you. So you just kind of have to think of him as a businessman and almost not like a president. All right. So, Brian, lots of supporters of Prime Minister Mark Carney have been also saying that, these 35% tariffs don't really matter because most goods in Canada are exempt from those anyway. So you don't buy that argument, though. Why not?
Uh, because I've looked at the data, I've looked at how things work out, and you don't have to just take my word for it. Lana Payne is the head of Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union. She represents a lot of workers in the automotive sector, in the steel sector, other sectors. And she has said, look, this is still a big problem. Don't minimize this. One, we've still got 50% tariffs on steel, on aluminum. You can look to plants across the country, and steel is across the country. York Steel in Fredericton, New Brunswick. You've got McMaster Steel just south of Montreal. You've got Stelco in Hamilton or Dofasco. You've got Algoma in Sault Ste. Marie. You've got Evraz in Regina. You've got, I believe, Stelco still has a plant up in Edmonton. You've got steel production and manufacturing or fabrication across the country. Those are still being hit. Aluminum out of Quebec, still being hit. Automotive, primarily focused on Ontario, still being hit. But then you get outside of those sectoral tariffs and you say, okay, well, this 35%, 90 to 93% of goods are exempt from that tariff under CUSMA. Well, Sylvain Charlebois, the food professor, as he has styled himself, he pointed out in a recent thing that especially in agriculture and agri-food, very important in a province like Alberta, that is not necessarily the case. And also, a lot of the things that could be exempt, well, you've got to apply for it. You've got to put yourself through a lot of paperwork. You could be rejected. And a lot of buyers are no longer looking to Canadian suppliers because they're just unsure. And so while that sounds good on paper, it's not reality. So the Carney supporters are trying to say, oh, these tariffs don't matter. A little while ago, they were saying this is an existential threat. This is why you have to elect our guy. Now they're saying, oh, but these don't matter because we've got CUSMA. You can't have it both ways. And the simple fact of the matter is many, many contracts have been shut down because people are just not willing to deal with the uncertainty. Will there be a tariff? Will there not be? Will it be applied to this particular product? Will it not be? That shuts business down faster than anything, uncertainty.
Now, here's one that might affect us as well, Brian. So Trump is now threatening a tariff as high as 250% on pharmaceuticals, which it turns out is a major export product for Canada. So how do you think this could impact us?
Could affect us in a big way. The pharmaceutical industry, look, you've got a big concentration of brand name pharmaceuticals in the Montreal area. You've got a big concentration of no name or, generic pharmaceuticals in the Toronto area. But you've got pharmaceutical businesses across the country. And depending on who you listen to, it could be as high as $9 billion a year that we are sending south of the border. Why is Trump upset about pharmaceuticals? Because we pay lower prices than the Americans do. On not on everything, on some. He keeps using the example of insulin costing much more in the United States. Well, people that are familiar with diabetes would say insulin costs more in the United States, but test strips are cheaper in the US, things like that. So he's trying to find a way to say, why are we paying, at some points, he says, as much as 10 times the price in the US compared to what you would pay in Canada, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in similar, economies. And he believes that the pharmaceutical companies are ripping off the American consumer by charging them more and charging the rest of us less. So he's saying, look, you're going to cut prices or I'm going to do this. So it's not really targeted at Canada, but it is targeted at the pharmaceutical companies to say, either you're going to lower your prices domestically or I'm going to stop you from importing anything. Ozempic is one of the biggest drugs in the US right now. Of course, it was developed as a diabetes drug and is now being used for fat loss. And it is something that people want, people think they need. And it's manufactured primarily in Europe. So this is something that he is going after for domestic reasons, but it could hit us, as part of the fallout.
Brian, a pair of Mark Carney's ministers are in Mexico to talk trade. You mentioned Philippe Francois earlier, he and Anita Anand. So it's being billed as a way to expand trade beyond the U.S. So is this likely to work? What do you think?
We're not huge trading partners with Mexico. It's not small. I'm not going to say that we don't do trade with Mexico, but they're not one of our, the U.S., China, those are our two big trading partners. Mexico falls in line after them. The idea that we can pivot away from the U.S. is lovely. I'd love for us to do it. Stephen Harper tried for 10 years. He signed more trade deals than any prime minister in Canadian history, trying to get us to pivot away from the United States. And what happened? Exports to the U.S. went up, as a percentage of GDP, as a percentage of our exports. We haven't been able to do this. And also, we continue to try and expand our exports, and yet we get in our own way. Let me give you one quick example. A big irritant between Canada and the United States is dairy. Cheese production, cheese imports, milk imports, things like that. The Americans say we're treating them unfairly, and Canadians say, we don't want your milk anyway, or you're horrible and we don't want it. Well, guess what? Everywhere we go, dairy is an irritant. We had trade talks going on with the United Kingdom, with Britain, after they left the European Union. And do you know why they shut down? Dairy. We said we will not allow you to continue exporting to Canada the same amount of cheese that you did when you were part of the European Union. And I think there are still 10 countries in the European Union that haven't ratified our trade deal that was signed in 2015. Wow. This is 10 years later. They still haven't fully ratified it because they don't like some of the provisions, including around dairy. We continue to be our own worst enemy on trade, in particular around this one industry that is heavily politically focused around Quebec.
Political reporter and Toronto Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Well, most people enjoy dancing, although some of us aren't necessarily great at it, but most kids especially love to dance. So is it worthwhile to get children to learn to dance at a young age? Besides being fun, is it beneficial? Well, joining me to chat about this is Madison Meyerhofer. She spent 12 years teaching ballet at the University of Lethbridge, including 5 years as the head of the ballet program, and she now operates Proclamation Studios in Lethbridge. She joins me now in studio. Here she is. Great to have you with me today, Madison. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So, and I hope I pronounced your name properly.
Yes.
Yay. Okay. We're off to a great start. So, Madison, tell us a bit about Proclamation Studios. It's your own studio, right? So you're living the dream.
I am.
Okay. What kinds of dance lessons do you offer? Do you have a specific type of approach when you're teaching kids?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I offer ballet and acrobatics and aerial hoop mostly.
Whoa.
And then we do a little musical theater and sometimes a little jazz or lyrical and a little ballroom. Sometimes.
Oh, a little bit of everything. I mean, I love this. I was a child dancer as well. I started when I was probably about 5 years old.
Okay,
I did
yeah.
ballet, jazz, later on musical theater, and then eventually cheerleading. But there's got to be so many benefits to taking dance for kids. I would imagine it develops skills, self-confidence, you name it, huh?
Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, the focus, so for my studio, one of the kind of overarching themes is mastering the body you've been blessed with. So we all have this wonderful body and it's very unique, and I think oftentimes we don't know how to manage our own bodies well. And so a big focus I put on for the kids, it's like, yes, you'll enjoy dance and has so many benefits, but can this benefit you for the rest of your life? Do you know how to work with your body and how to kind of take care of it and control it so that can benefit you, all the way through.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Self-control.
Yeah.
Along with the self-confidence. That's amazing. What's the earliest age that you get kids in there? What do you recommend?
I start from 3.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, 3-year-olds are so much fun.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah, I love them.
I can imagine. Are they hard to manage?
It
hurting
can be on
cats.
occasion, but in general, no, I know how to manage them pretty well. Once you get them involved, they're just excited. So.
Yeah. Do you see like just such a growth in them?
Yes. Yeah, hugely. Especially the past couple years, I've been trying out various curriculums just to find, the best one. And one of them I found, it's focusing on teaching the whole child. So there's a lot of like cognitive and emotional aspects to the dance that we combine. And things like in dance, you do a lot of cross-body work. And that actually really connects the right and left sides of your brain. So I'll see them, I'll get them. And then a couple months later, it's like their coordination is so improved and their balance and their stability. And then I get kids in who haven't had those couple months and there's a really marked difference. So that's one of the cool things with the 3-year-olds. You can really see it quickly as they develop.
That's so neat. A child doesn't have to be 3 or 5 or whatever. Are there any ages where it's like the child is too old? My guess would be no.
No, absolutely not.
You're never too old to start learning, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. No, and I love getting those older students in who maybe haven't tried dance before, and then they just get to enjoy something new. And
so do you have classes then? With that said, do you have classes for like teens as well, or even adult classes?
Yeah, I do. I have one specific adult class. But I really try to keep kind of a whole family approach in my studio. So I have actually moms who take like aerial hoop with their daughters, and we kind of just put the adults and the kids in together, and they all enjoy it together.
That's so cute. What is aerial hoop for people who don't know?
Question. Yes. So aerial hoop is dance and circus movements done on a big circular metal hoop. So it's like Cirque du Soleil type stuff. So you start with a hoop like hanging pretty low, and then eventually it goes up higher and higher. So
and it spins around.
And it's spinning. Yeah. So it's so beautiful to watch. So strength developing because it's very intense to learn those moves. Yeah. So I have a bunch of moms in there, and they're like, "Oh, my core!" It's so good.
That sounds like a great core workout.
Yeah.
So, are there anything that parents need to know if they are wanting to put their kids into this, or what if they're a little bit like, I'm not sure that my child will even enjoy this?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. Yeah, I do like a free trial class of any and all genres they want to try, because sometimes it's not quite the right fit for them or for their child, so they just need to try it out. So they can go to the website and click on free trial class, and then they can try out any class they want to and see if it's good.
No, that's fantastic. Do you find that when children keep at it and start showing improvement that their dance abilities, that their personal confidence and self-esteem improves as well? We kind of touched on that a little bit earlier.
We did, yeah. It's such a big deal. And also just with dance, a big part of it is on performance and communication to the audience. So teaching them to express outwards really builds their confidence. I see it a lot. Yeah, definitely.
I would imagine there's, many people, obviously, who aren't necessarily gifted naturally in dance. So what recommendations do you have for them?
Yeah, those are one of my favorite students to work with.
Oh, fabulous.
Who just like maybe, struggle a little bit more or have different limitations. But when they get something, it's so much more rewarding. I have classes a little bit geared toward lower levels. So we kind of try to find the right fit for them. And
Can you still teach them if they're not motivated or if they're not kind of like grasping on? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, there's different ways to motivate students. You try to find the thing that really clicks with them for dance. So for some of them, it's like the acting part of it, like telling a story. So then you just really try to incorporate in our dance, we're always telling a story, and so what's the story? For some of them, they're like to be really technically minded, so if you just slow down and use a lot of technical cues, they like that. Other kids, it's the music, or maybe even the friends, right, in class, and so lots of group partner work can help motivate students too.
That's really fun. What about boys? Do you get? Yes, I would imagine that you want more boys to join.
Always.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have some boys for sure. I have my brother actually took dance for a lot of years, took ballet and dance exams, and then I've been teaching him acro, and so he draws a lot of boys to the studio because he's super powerful and can do all those amazing kind of tumbling tricks. So we have boys often like acro because it's so strength-based, and who doesn't want to learn a backflip and those kinds of awesome things. Then we made kind of a tumbling class, which is geared more towards boys, because boys, you need to teach differently from girls, and they need to feel like they have that distinction.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, they feel like they're being sissied. So I really try to take a different approach, and I try to have a male teacher in the boys' class, or a male assistant at least, so they just feel like, yeah, there's someone here who's like me, who knows how I'm thinking. And
that's wonderful. I love that you take a different approach, because I was going to ask, what if it's a boy that's a little bit like, you know, I don't want to be labeled.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, no.
Totally.
No,
Yeah.
that's great. No, exactly. How many boys per, like, what's your ratio like? Are you looking for more boys to join?
I would love to have more boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, always. Yeah, it's still a small ratio, but I've got maybe, you know, 20 boys in the program, which isn't bad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Compared to how many girls? Like, what's your capacity?
Well, last year we had about 200 students. So yeah, still really low on the boys' side, but some.
No, that's not bad. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about adult classes. What about, like, how old can you go? If it's someone who's never taken dance, let's say it's a senior even, it's like, you know what, I want to try something new in my life.
Yeah.
And take a dance class.
Absolutely, yeah. I have an adult ballet class, and it's just for complete beginners. So I have a variety of people in there from all ages.
Yeah.
It's a blast. It's a really fun class.
No, I bet that is. I understand that from time to time you put together productions and like musical productions, I guess.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah, I love, so dance, it's normal just to have like a recital, right? Each person does their thing, but a big focus of my passion and my studio is that we storytell and we communicate through dance. So if I put on a big recital or show, I always make it a story. And so each class feels like they're part of the story and telling the story. So we have characters, and lots of times I do live music, or we write the music for it. And yeah, the kids help me with ideas for costumes and choreography. So it's very fun. We have our next show is coming up this coming year, actually.
Oh, no, wonderful. What's it called?
We are doing The Magician's Nephew. So that is, if you're familiar with the Narnia Chronicles, that's one of the books in there, less well known. So that's why we thought we'd give it a go.
Oh, that's well. When is that coming up?
It's going to be in May or June. We're still finalizing theater dates next year.
Okay. And do you use some of your ballet students, some of your musical theater, like a little bit of everybody, or is it just musical theater?
No, it's every single class has a part.
I love it.
Yeah, from all ages.
Even the aerial ones.
Yeah, the aerial hoop, that's very impressive to see on stage.
I bet the audience just loves that. What are some of the positive comments that you get from, or that you receive, I guess, from parents or even students?
Well, I have a lot of parents and students who appreciate kind of the clean and wholesome approach to dance. So I really, dance can be like quite sensual, especially in our culture. And so my studio, everything is clean, age-appropriate costumes, choreography, music. There's nothing to suggest anything in any age group. So I get a lot of positive comments on that. And another thing is a focus on like anatomy and like technical qualities. So I teach my kids the muscle and bone names of their body, starting from like 5 and 6, so that they know, you know.
Little education.
Exactly.
Got some biology in there.
Exactly. So it's not just monkey see, monkey do. It's like I really want them to understand for themselves what the technique is. So yeah, that's been a really positive thing too.
No, that's neat. Have you ever had any students? You said you've been doing this for 17 years.
Yes. Okay. This will be 17, so 16.
That you've been teaching.
Yeah.
Okay, so where have you seen your students go from the time that they walked in the door? Have any gone on to do more dance in their life? Have they Dancing with the Stars? That's a little extreme, but you know.
Yeah, I have several students who've gone to dance degrees in various universities, and some who are teachers, kind of around in Canada. Yeah, I have some sort of like more local, like in Calgary, performing arts companies, small performing arts companies. Some of them have worked with them before. So.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Any professional cheerleaders?
No, actually.
Okay, maybe that'll happen.
Maybe that will happen. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Get on up to Calgary. Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe remind our viewers once again, how can parents get their children enrolled and involved in a dance class?
You just visit my website, www.proclamationstudios.ca, and then the schedule's on there, and you can look at classes, and you can book a free trial or register for the classes you want. You can always call the studio or email me, and I can help you if you're not sure what class is right for you.
Yeah. How many months do these classes go for? Like, is it a semester, a year,
Yeah,
a few
this
months
year,
at a time?
because of the show, everybody is registering for the full year, so September to June. So that way they can be part of the big production. It's quite a major production.
Yeah, I bet
So
it
I need
is.
to know how many I have.
Sounds like it is.
Yeah, the exception is the musical theater starts in January, so they have a bit of a shorter semester, but everyone is the full year.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that show is not till next spring?
That's right.
Okay, where will that be at?
It will be the University Theater.
Okay,
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I love working with those guys. They're great.
Okay, and tickets will be sold the whole bit?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Where does the
exactly.
money go?
Lots of it, goes into the production, and then the tickets just help offset that because
Yeah.
I like to write the music and do amazing sets
Yeah.
and all of that kind of stuff. So most of it goes to the kids and their costumes.
Yeah,
And
and it costs a lot of money to run a
like that.
business like that, I would imagine.
does,
too.
yes.
No.
Yeah.
Well, Madison, I wish you all the best with that
Thank
big,
you.
huge musical production. Let us know when it's happening because we'd love to be there to check it out. But thanks so much for joining us today. Really
you for having
appreciate
me.
having you on. Madison Meyerhofer is the owner of Proclamation Studios. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.